Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. You know where to get us. Live now on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit and youtube.com/at Pride of Detroit. Multi-stream, multifaceted, multi-unilateral combat podcast for the best sport on earth, NFL, for the best team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. I don't have to provide citations. I'm not under the Chicago system here. One man who might be under the Chicago system, I'm going reversies now, is Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD. What is it? Is it Chicago citation system for you, Ryan, or MLA? How do you do it?
MLA. Yeah, all day.
As MLA all day.
Yeah. I agree with all of your assessments at the top. Best sport. Maybe, arguably, I don't know. There's a really good sport going on in Detroit right now that you're not too big a fan of, but that's okay. I don't think it's a sport.
I don't think it's a sport. You want to bring back that argument? You want to bring back that discussion? Jeremy Reisman, fearless leader at Detroit Online, is usually who we introduce first in here. And hi, Jeremy.
Hi. We get to talk about breaking news today. That doesn't always get to happen on the main PODcast.
Usually it happens after the PODcast.
That's right.
Usually happens directly after, and we all look like jerks. And I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett on Twitter. What we're going to do on this PODcast today is discuss the Combine. The Combine comes up here on Thursday. We all have some players who we want to watch. We're going to be talking about what we expect to see out of the Combine, and really in general also talk about if the Combine is still a meaningful vehicle towards preparing and looking and evaluating players for scouting purposes. But we do want to start with the news, as we always do in the offseason, and right hot off the presses, as Jeremy alluded to, Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is back with the Detroit Lions. I did say last podcast I didn't expect to see really much changes at all to the linebacker room, and I think this cements it, coming out that the Lions have agreed to a contract extension with Jaylen Reeves-Mabin. It's a 2-year, $7.5 million deal worth up to a max of $8 million. And I believe about just north of $5 million, about $5.25 million is guaranteed on that contract, including a $2.5 million signing bonus. It's record numbers for a special teamer, Jeremy. However, we talked about Jerem's special teams numbers, and he is still a key contributor to the depth of the linebacker core with the Detroit Lions all the same. So how do you break this down for the Lions, the money with everything? We also got the news this past week that the salary cap is going up astronomically. So this is, I think, kind of the appetizer to what could be quite a few eye-watering extensions as the Lions try to take care of their core.
Yeah, and people might look at this contract and think it's a lot for a special teamer, and maybe that's true. And the way it was reported, as you alluded to, is record-breaking special teamer deal. I think that's a poor way that it's being framed, because Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is a good linebacker. Like, he's not going to start for you, but he was kind of an essential player down the stretch. If you look at his snap counts from week 12 on, it's over 10 every single game except for the last one in which he got injured against the 49ers. So he was averaging about 14 snaps per game on defense. So to call him just a special teamer, I think, is not doing him full service. And not to mention, like, he's an important piece in case there is an injury, in case he has to start. He has starting experience here in Detroit. He's capable of doing stuff that other linebackers aren't, particularly as a coverage guy. He's their best coverage linebacker, which is why he got as much playing time as he did, particularly on third down. So I think this is one of the easier decisions the Lions had to make. In fact, it was surprising. I think we all thought a couple of years ago, when he wasn't brought back after, I think he had 1 year with Dan Campbell. No, that's not true. They didn't re-sign him as soon as Dan Campbell took over. That was a little bit surprising at the time. They brought him back last year. But, they were in a different spot in terms of their cap health back then. I think they were kind of penny pinching a little bit back in 2021. And so when they had the opportunity to bring him back, they did. And now that they're in a very good, healthy cap situation, and they have maybe a little bit of that extra money because of the cap increase, I think this was pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, made his first Pro Bowl team this year, was second team All Pro.
Yep.
Led special teamers in tackles this season, which is one stat that it doesn't really translate to defense. Like, just because you have 140 tackles doesn't mean you're a great defender. But I think on special teams, it does mean something. It means like you're getting to the ball first. And if you're making tackles on special teams, I think that's more indicative of a good player. Um, real quick with Jeremy, he did play in 2021 with Detroit, and then he went to Houston.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he came back. But I think still all the same, like seeing him walk out of the door for a team that loves players like Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, right? Like just screams like professional dude who does whatever is asked of him and does it at a high level, especially on special teams. Like, I mean, he played a lot in 2021, and to see him not come back, remember he got that big deal from Houston. Yep. Remember Houston broke him off with a nice.
And they cut him after 1 year. Like he signed a 2-year deal, didn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, the Texans were a mess anyways. I mean, that's Nico
true.
Ryan's coming in, all that changeover and everything for sure. But the other thing about Jerm, I mean, emergency quarterback, 1 for 1, 31 yards.
But I mean, that speaks to
there's always someone who can make a throw.
How much they trust him. Like he had to take over that personal protector role this year because CJ Moore got suspended, and so he's kind of like the new CJ Moore. That's how essentially he is. And remember, the Lions handed CJ Moore a pretty big special teams deal last offseason before the suspension. So we know this team values special teams. And Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is now the face of that. And now that I'm assuming they're not going to bring back CJ Moore.
Yeah, I don't expect that either. One person who's also not going to be back is Lions DB Tracy Walker. I don't think it's official yet, Jeremy, but the way he's been posting and the way
it is official now.
The Lions did make it official. Okay. Because I was about to say, I saw the Instagram post from Tracy Walker, but I don't think at the time it was official, but it definitely was thanking the city of Detroit, the Lions, the organization, but this was the way it was going to go. So Lions, and again, near the end, Tracy Walker not really seeing the field much, but still kind of a bummer for someone who had a very good year and a half or so, who really you kind of expected to still be part of this team. And 2023, like we talked about it, Jeremy, that DB room is shaking up quite a bit to the point where we might even see some free agency decisions that might be a little confusing for some people. But Tracy Walker definitely was one of those who found himself on the outside looking in as the Lions kind of cemented on this idea of Fatu Melifonwu and Brian Branch, and then CJ Gardner-Johnson coming back, Kirby Joseph, Walker, excuse me, just find himself on the outside.
Yeah, it's a crappy story. It wasn't unexpected, I even talked about this on several podcasts. Like there was no way he was going to carry around the $12 million cap hit on the bench. He was inactive for the entire playoffs. He not even just benched, he was inactive. He wasn't eligible to play in any of those games as a healthy player. So there's no way he was going to stick around unless he was going to take a pay cut. And knowing everything I know about the situation, that wasn't going to be in the cards. He probably views himself as a player still capable of starting, and I think maybe he is. I think that's what he's going to be seeking in the offseason. And there really wouldn't be any reason for him to take a pay cut to be a backup here. That's not where he's going to progress his career in the final year of his 3-year deal that he signed a couple years ago. So not a surprising move. It is a bummer, particularly because this is a guy that when he signed that extension in 2022, the idea was he was going to be a clear guy, like a leader. We had that speech that we saw him give Tracy Walker right after he signed the extension of like, this is your team now. Like show everyone around here what we're made of. And, 3 games later, he tears his Achilles and that just kind of sets him on an entirely different path. And it's a stark reminder of how quickly things can change in this league with players, with expectations, with the future. And so unfortunately, he's kind of the model of things can go south very quickly for a guy that you thought was part of your core. But the Lions they're in a decent place, at least in terms of their starting safeties, but they do have some other decisions they're going to have to make when it comes to building out their depth there.
And I think, Jeremy, that some people might see this and hear what you just said in terms of Tracy Walker is a guy who probably views himself as capable of going to play somewhere else and not just be on a roster, not just play special teams, but maybe go play defense and get defensive snaps at safety somewhere else. But I think Lions fans might see that and wonder, well, Tracy was clearly beloved here. You just mentioned the conversation that him and Dan had right before the contract stuff. I mean, it's one of Brad's first big contract extensions he does while he's in-house. Like that, all up until the Achilles thing, right? Like Tracy Walker is going to be a fixture on your defense. He's one of your foundational pieces. And like you said, the Achilles happens. But we saw in the past, like Charles Harris take a renegotiation and Romeo Okwara take a contract renegotiation. You just wonder why maybe that wasn't in the cards, especially for a player that it seemed like they had such a good relationship with. Not saying that all things were going to work here, right? Like there wasn't a clear path to Tracy playing a lot of snaps on defense, and maybe he is a guy who I think you come to the conclusion that he just thinks he's a guy who can rebound and maybe put a good year of defensive tape out there and then get another contract. Because he's certainly not. I mean, he's older, but he's not like past the point of maybe bouncing back. It'd be surprising considering it was an Achilles injury, but I mean, rooting for the guy. Love Tracy Walker. What a great dude.
Let's see what else we have here as far as re-signings. Michael Badgley back again on a 1-year deal. Jeremy.
Yep, we don't know the contract terms of that one yet, but I would not imagine it's a very high deal. In fact, Brad Holmes talked to 97.1 Ticket on Monday morning and basically said, like, yeah, we're comfortable with him as our kicker, but just like every position, we're going to have competition. So this is not Michael Badgley has re-earned the starting position. This is you are a contender again, and let's see if you can win out in a training camp battle this year.
I kind of expect them to bring in some competition at some point. I do think, however, that I don't know, like I think we've already done this argument already through the offseason. Like Badgley is someone that they at least trust enough to keep like bringing back and trying to figure out what they have. But it is now a 1-year deal for him. But I think it does throw out a lot of the questions about how much does Dan Campbell trust Badgley to make that kick during a lot of games. Like we've seen him make the kicks. It is a little bit overblown, I think, sometimes, just because I think people want to at least believe there is a reason, a practical reason for me going as much on 4th down decision that isn't stemming from we just want to be aggressive. It's coming from a place of I don't know if the Lions want to trust their kicker. And that was always kind of a small subplot that was going on. I didn't really.
I never bought it either.
I didn't buy it either. But like, I think some people. I've seen fans split on this move because the reputation of Badgley is so mixed. And I think sometimes that narrative did hurt his reputation a bit. I'm not expecting him to be Justin Tucker, but Ryan, we've seen him hit. I think I pulled up his card. Like he's hit 50 plus yarders and like, so, but the belief is that if it's from more than 45, he can't hit it. But in the past 2 years, I think from 40 to 49, it was 10 made on 12 attempts, and from 50 plus 2 made on 3 attempts. That's good for any kicker.
I think people saw him kick the field goal against the Rams in the wild card round and said like, oh, okay.
54 yards, yeah.
They do trust the guy, and maybe he does have a little bit of leg to him. Again, I don't think that the plays in the NFC Championship game had much to do with whether or not they trusted Badgley or not. I think it had more so to do with how Dan Campbell was just approaching that game in general and how he typically approaches games. Whatever. I mean, just keep on bringing in kickers. Like this is the curse though. And like we talked about this when the Lions moved on from Matt Prater, it's like you have a kicker until you don't have one. And then when you don't have one, it's just about as damn hard as finding a quarterback that you would want to stick with. Like how many kickers stick with the same franchise like their entire careers? Like it's very far and few in between. Yeah. And even excluding guys like Vinatieri, right, who go and moonlight elsewhere late in their career. But it's if you don't have one, it sucks.
Is it I think maybe it might just be a new feeling for Lions fans. Like if you stuck around this team long enough, we went like before Prater, it was Jason Hansen forever. Oh. Like Lions don't usually sit here like thinking about Lions fans don't usually have to sit around thinking like, all right, who's going to be our kicker? It's actually been one place, Jeremy, where there's been a lot of consistency through the years.
Yeah. And yeah, like I get the consternation about not having one, and it is frustrating when extra points aren't necessarily automatic, and you'll occasionally get a miss from like 38 yards, but you don't win this league by kicking field goals.
Just go for it anyways. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I hope they eventually find someone that they can trust, and that we don't have to play this roulette game that they have been playing since Prater left town, but If that's the one spot that the Lions are struggling with, they're going to be okay. They were okay last year.
We mentioned it a little bit, and I think this deserves talking a little bit more as we kind of prepare to do our deeper dive into the combine here in a second. But I just want to circle back around. We mentioned the salary cap. The salary cap going up way above early estimates, up to $255.4 million, which is, I think the estimate, Jeremy, was something like 245 million, so 10 million higher. I've seen a lot of explanations as for why. I don't think it was because of Taylor Swift, first off, but for people asking. But I do think that it's just more of a sign that this sport is just so far and away dominant and commands so much power on live broadcast terrestrial television still, that it's just more, it earns more and more of that market share every year to an astronomical level, and it's at least being passed along to what teams can do with their salary cap. So I then take this and look to, what does it really mean for the Detroit Lions? And I think that's pretty obvious right now, Jeremy. We talked about it last week. Like, there's a lot of big free agency decisions, extensions the Lions have to do. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Everyone's awaiting what's going to happen with Jared Goff and his numbers. But it's more money for teams to play with. And I think that's always a good thing. And just it's a good thing. It gets people off guard sometimes, because like, oh my God, you're giving out this much money for a wide receiver, you're giving out this much money for a quarterback. It's like, yeah, because the market kind of inflated.
Inflation. It's inflation, yeah. Essentially. And it's important to always point out with this, like, everyone's like, oh my God, the Lions have 10 more million to spend now. It's like, okay, but so does everybody else. Like, it's not just the Lions getting this advantage. So when the news broke, I was trying to think how it impacts Detroit. And I'm like, well, my first inclination is like, maybe this allows them to sign an extra guy in-house that maybe they didn't plan on it, or, be a little bit more malleable with agents and say, you know what, if Jared Goff wants 50 million instead of 49 million, okay, we can afford that now, or, things like that. All internal stuff, because externally, all, the rising tide raises all boats type of thing. But it's interesting because when Brad Holmes talked about it again on the radio this morning, he was like, and I'm very loosely paraphrasing here, he's basically saying, like, we already had the internal stuff earmarked. We kind of knew our budget of what we were going to do internally. This maybe offers us an opportunity externally, saying, okay, maybe we can sign one more guy. Or when we're looking at one position, maybe one more guy now becomes available that we thought might be too pricey. And that to me is kind of interesting, right? Because I don't think anyone really expects the Lions to go for the top guy in any category, because that is just not how the Lions have operated. And Brad Holmes continually says, like, we aren't a team that's trying to win headlines in March. We're trying to win championships in December and January and February. And so while the Lions probably still aren't going to be that team that gets the very top guy, like, they might edge pretty close to the top guy. I mean, they got Cam Sutton last year, which was, a top 3 or 4 guy at his position in free agency last year. So maybe one more guy that they thought wasn't going to be available economically is now economically available. And then the other thing, and I think it was Eric who kind of put this in my ear a little bit, I think one of the things that I think the Lions benefit for with the salary cap increase too this year in particular is they have kind of a lot of dead money. With the Tracy Walker release, with some of these voided years that have now been officially voided, you can kind of absorb that hit a little bit better. And I'm not saying like Brad Holmes was a clairvoyant and he knew it was going to jump 30 million this offseason, but it certainly softens the landing and makes him look kind of smart, knowing that dead money is essentially just covered by an unexpected raise of the salary cap.
Hey, the salary cap still very real though. Like I just saw the breaking news. I mean, teams are starting to restructure and release guys right now, but this will be an interesting name. Like I need to do a little bit more research. But Carl Granderson, edge rusher for the Saints, signed a big contract extension in September of 2023. I think it was the second largest extension that an undrafted player had ever signed in NFL history. He had a really good year for the Saints, but they had to cut him because they could save 7.2 million.
Saints situation is almost fairly unique in just how badly I don't think they had to pay this Piper too.
I think they converted his salary.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
They could. Salary cap clearing continues. They converted it. I was like, why the hell would they cut this guy?
No.
But anyways, no. Look, the Saints, they still have to do stuff with their salary cap. I was like, why did they cut Carl Granderson? He had like a career year. Look at me being adequate. Chris, you can take the night off.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not going to take the night off because I've got to tell people about meat, Ryan. I've got to talk about meat. I've got to talk about Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. I'm holding the bag wrong for the non-visual medium.
Oh,
it's real.
You got it.
It's back again. I got a whole box over here. I'm not going to show you over here. I've got the Soul Survivor. I've got actually what I should have grabbed is the Truffalo Bill. The truffle jerky, which is fantastic. I have a friend from, especially when it's fresh right out of there, so good. But it's the official jerky of the Pride of Detroit podcast, and it's the jerky, the beef jerky that fuels your Detroit Lions, because Righteous Felon jerky and meat sticks are available to Lions players at the training facilities of Allen Park. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky, like the bag of fowl capone turkey jerky infused with basil and pepper and other spices, has 16 to 20 grams of protein. And each stick, they have meat sticks. It's like Slim Jims, 8 grams of protein. Trust me, if it's good enough for the Lions, it's going to be good enough for you too. They're based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Using locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef, prize themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors like many of those I just mentioned, that just go beyond your stereotypical jerky offering. I'm getting questions from our international fans on how to get this stuff. I do think you can send jerky internationally, so I'm already helping a friend in the Netherlands try to get their hands on this stuff. That's just how far and wide this racket goes, Ryan.
Yum, meat.
We're going to make the meat even better. 15% off your order. Use it at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code POD15 at checkout. That's POD15, 15 at righteousfelon.com. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast, the NFL Combine is already underway. Players are already beginning to arrive in Indianapolis. Drills are going to start on Thursday. We're going to talk about, first off, what we're expecting to hope to hear from the Lions, from Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, about the Combine coming up here. But also, is it a good way for us to still evaluate the draft? And also, some players I think we all expect that we really want to see at the Combine, stuff that we think can probably help their stock or that we just have questions about them. We have a list here of players. Hopefully it'll be a guide for you as a Lions fan watching the Combine, because God knows they made this a made-for-TV event now, and we'll give them to you next on the Pride of Detroit PODcast.
Hi, everybody.
Lion in London says you can't. So from what I understand, jerky's in an odd place. It is pre-packaged. And I know it's going to be different per country coming out of the U.S. And I'm trying to figure out some like Netherlands rules. But I know for the U.S., as long as like pre-packaged dried meats, it should be all right. But some postal service workers just do not know that.
Calling out the USPS.
Whoa, that almost sounded dirty.
Pulling them out?
Calling.
I like. Is Jaylen Reeves-Mabin this year's Khalif Raymond?
You could say that.
Just from your tweet, like, hey, don't call him just a special teams player.
Right. Although
that's It's what like Rappaport and Schefter, they're all like, oh, look at the little punt returner.
I gotta say, I finally tried one of these the other day, and this is like really good.
I was having a little bit of that today. It's in the other room.
Oh my god! I was not expecting how much Gochujang they're throwing on that.
Let's you know what? We're gonna be efficient with our break here. Because there were like 3 things we didn't get to in the first segment that we can either completely skip, or I think we could probably turn this into a 3-segmenter if we want.
I just don't know if I have much meat on the bone other than just like there's nothing I can say on either of these things. So like, and also I was more reacting for Ryan because I know he is a degenerate and he wants to get some bets in right now.
We can do this right now. So
I just want to talk about Qantas Stiggers. That's all. I think it's a really interesting, fun story. I don't love saying his name though.
Me neither. And it looks like you should have brought John on for this podcast if you wanted to talk about it so bad.
Wow.
I just don't want to hear it from Jeremy poo-pooing when I start posting about the CFL in July then.
Oh, I will. Because if I can talk about Qantas Stiggers, that also leaves, by your definition, that would leave you an opportunity to talk about the fan-controlled football, which he also played in and thrived in.
I would prefer not to talk about fan-controlled football.
I agree. And I would also agree not to talk about the CFL.
Wait, what about the football that they're playing on ice? Have you seen this?
Oh my! I did see that. Is that in Germany? Was that in Germany?
I don't know where it was, but
that was very fun. So I was expecting ice skates when I pulled it up, and instead of just guys just shuffling around. Those moves you do when you don't have skates and you're on ice, and it's like, oh my god! Like I'm just trying to keep my grip.
Dude, I'm just imagining that the team trainers look like the Popeyes worker.
Like just overwhelmed.
There's got to be so many ACL injuries, and
I'm worried about.
That's probably even worse than like going down on turf. But the good news is because everyone else doesn't have balance, like nobody's throwing hard tackles. I'm sure.
No, everybody's like moving around like they're in a Mario Party game, like the one where you have to stay on top of the ball.
Yes,
and it's like on ice.
Yeah.
Like that one highlight of that person scoring that touchdown, they're just like on tippy toes. It looks like somebody who's like, it looks like a trainer who's like trying to run out during a hockey game.
Yeah,
but they're like trying to make sure that they don't eat, you know what, in front of 18,000 people.
It's
hold on. You're lucky that if you have 18, that is far less than 18,000 people in an arena.
For sure.
That is maybe like 5,000 tops.
I was talking about at a hockey game.
Oh, hockey game. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what I think of is the Parks and Recreation episode. Well, there's 2 parts to it. There's them running out on the ice to get to the red carpet and everyone's falling, and they keep just re-looping the song "Get on Your Feet." And then there's also, I think the same episode, they get like the one famous basketball player that's from Pawnee to try to dunk a basketball while on ice, and it ends as you'd expect.
Oh man,
I've never watched Parks and
Rec. What, Ryan?
Neither have I.
I lie.
You expect that from me?
I expect your TV taste to disappoint me.
I am gonna go watch Dune Part 2 this week.
Are you gonna get the popcorn bucket and make it a date?
I'm expecting that from my Discord friends and not you at this point. Just Jesus Christ. No, I am not going to get the Shai Halud and eat popcorn out the Halussi.
Jesus. Damon Brown, thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube.
I have watched a lot of Starship Troopers this past week, Ryan. I know you and we talk a lot about our love of Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop, and
yeah,
I'm assuming you like Total Recall as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great movie.
But Starship Troopers has popped onto my timeline quite a bit this week. Partly because there was some idiot on Twitter trying to say it was a bad movie, which ended about as basically it very quickly like that he doesn't get the joke of Starship Troopers. And the other part being that Helldivers 2 became like one of the most played video games on planet Earth, and it is invoking that Starship Troopers I'm doing my part vibe very, very hard.
Man, I need to go back and watch Starship Troopers. It's been a minute, but it doesn't surprise me that people don't understand satire ever. So
well, that came out in 97 too. That was like before like anything that happened in the 2000s and was prescient for like nearly all of it.
Yeah.
And just, but it's one of those movies where Verhoeven doesn't really seem to pull a punch ever to like let you know. He doesn't never winks to the camera, but I appreciate it almost as much as RoboCop.
Great films. Jeremy.
Yeah.
Do we have a lot of alerts? Because
No,
people are
we don't.
People are in here quoting you. We're going to be efficient with our break.
That's true.
Chuck Hunter.
But Simmons is also talking about how The Office was the third best show when it was airing. And you're so close to the truth there, Simmons, because you forgot 30 Rock was also better than The Office. Otherwise, you were right. Anyways, thank you for all the I'm doing my parts in chat.
By the way, speaking of Helldivers 2, if anyone does play Helldivers,
Mark, what just happened, everybody?
Yeah. Go on.
No. Finish your point.
No, that was my point.
Oh, okay.
Saying, if anyone's playing Helldivers 2, please let me know.
Okay. Dreskel, thank you for the 18-month subscribe here on Twitch. Chop27, 10-month subscribed to the channel. Throwing some pride of cheers in the chat. G Money, 12 months, a full frickin' year subscribed on Twitch. Papa Smurf, 9 months. Twitch baby says Brad Holmes must be one mean bastard to give this team success so early. It's a good reference. Woodchuck Under 100 bits says Chris, talk about the Tigers and their first 2 training camp games. Lol.
Oh boy. I mean, what do you want? It's spring training. It's basically throwing double A, single A people at each other. What is it? They had like a tie with the Rays, and it was 22-10 on the Yankees. It doesn't matter, man. Colt, it's Colt Keith season. Colt Keith.
Gotcha. Drew Falcon, thank you for the 15 months. Says, I think I got my swagger back. Are you guys just gonna make me do that every time? Because I'll do it. Anytime someone has that as their sub message, I'm gonna do it. I can't not do it. Jason F65, thank you for the 14-month subscribe to the channel. Says love all the off-season content. You say that now, but when we get 2 months into the off-season, I don't know if we're gonna still be bringing it as much. I hope we will. Line in London, 41 months, says thank you for making my Lions fandom better through the bad times and enjoying these good times. Great job, guys. Hey, that's a really nice, wholesome message. Thank you, Line in London. Then also thanks for the 5 gifted subs right after that. It's been a while since we had the gifted subs. I feel like the gifted sub bombs going off, but I appreciate them all the same. Jer42, thank you for the 11-month subscribed to the channel. Kula, 16 months, says, is football back yet? We're pretty far away from football, sadly.
Football.
Kupak, thank you for the 18 months, says, watch the end of Starship Troopers. Children are used as replacements to fight the bugs, just like Mustache Youth. What?
He's talking about basically the fall of Nazi Germany. Like there's very little nods throughout Starship Troopers that the humans are losing the war. The humans, which is a fascist society in Starship Troopers, are losing a war against the bugs, and they're losing it badly. And one of the very small, very minute detail signs near the end is they get a bunch of troopers who are basically replacements for the Roughnecks, the unit that one of the main characters in, and they can't be older than like 16 years old. They look really young, but it's like these really small, like Paul Verhoeven, I think his house, his backyard there used to be a V2 rocket, like during World War II in where his backyard is now. Like he's very aware of what he was doing in that movie. It's supposed to be an in-universe propaganda film. It's basically like if this society got their way, this is the kind of movie they would make. Very humorless. Everything is just obtusely gory for no good reason. And everyone just is like young but not horny. They're just filled with patriotic ideals. Like it's almost like it was made bad on purpose, and nobody in 97 got that he was doing this, which is very odd because he's like giving you hints along the way. But it's nobody, I think, in the 90s could understand satirizing a military culture, especially when ours was kind of leaning that way to begin with, that it just went over everyone's heads. Or worse, they thought Verhoeven himself was a fascist.
This is your fault, Goopek. You get Chris talking on Starship Troopers, he's never going to stop.
I do like it. Yeah, kick puncher. I did like this mashup here. I'll throw some I think you should leave in there. I'm doing my part. I didn't do fucking shit.
We're through alerts, by the way. We did it. Yes. So anyone.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
How?
We'll talk about Starship Troopers, Racanis. Or Rakan is nice.
So that either means you guys aren't giving us enough alerts to talk about, or I'm getting better at this.
Little column A, little column B.
There you go. Are we starting a Patrick Kane chant during the offseason? Is he
I would
replayed
prefer not to.
The Jared Goff?
No, I would prefer not to.
Yeah.
It's got the right cadence.
Yeah, the requisite amount of syllables.
Yep. It still feels weird to you, right?
It does. Clearly.
Yeah. He
had
the game winner in back-to-back games. Is that right? Or no, he just assisted, I think, the game winner.
No, he had the game winner against Colorado.
The game I was at, I was trying to remember if he had
so technically not back-to-back because I don't know. Did he score the second goal in the Blues game? That they won 6-1?
Oh, I forgot about that game. Good question. I don't know.
I'm locked in, dude. I'm all in on Red Wings hockey. It's gonna be my way to keep myself preoccupied into April.
Yeah.
We're actually gonna have April in the D this year, Chris.
We are really going. Yeah, I was going to say
two out of three.
Three out of four. We're gonna have the draft.
Draft,
okay,
yeah.
Sure, I guess.
We're gonna have the Red Wings.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have Tigers starting up.
Yeah.
We can excuse the Pistons from these unless they want to jump in late April and fire Monty Williams, but I don't foresee that coming.
If they fire Monty Williams in April, could this be lining up for like the greatest April in Detroit sports history?
Whoa.
Bring back the Limp Bizkit song.
Okay,
Bring back the Detroiters version of April in the D.
April Detroiters.
Here's an interesting statement from YouTube that brings us back to the lines a little bit. From Detroit Fan Man says, I think it was kind of crazy. Kane had a video tribute with cheering fans during a game. Meanwhile, we booed Stafford's kids. And okay. First of all,
I thought about this.
First of all, Stafford's kids were not booed. Let's be clear here. Kelly walked that statement back.
Is that tongue in cheek? Is that comment?
It might be a little tongue in cheek, but like I saw someone throw out this idea, and I think there's probably going to be some like. Don't you think the Lions are going to maybe do that kind of tribute this year when the Rams visit Ford Field?
Yeah, it's a regular season game,
right?
Just as this one was.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you meant yes. Yeah, no, I don't know for sure that the Lions are going to cook something like that up, but
it would be weird if they didn't, though, right?
It would be a little bit weird.
It would make what happened in the playoff game seem a little bit different,
right? And what I think people from the outside don't understand about that Lions-Rams playoff game was internally that was so much more about the Lions having a home playoff game, regardless of who they were playing. Like, that was the storyline here. Is like, holy crap, this team won the division. This team has a home playoff game. Ford Field is going to be nuts. Stafford was secondary. Whereas nationally, Stafford was primary. Stafford returning to Detroit for the first time. Now now Detroit is going to be welcoming that narrative a little bit more during the regular season because the stakes won't be as high. There's different things to talk about. And so, yeah, I do hope they kind of do something like that. And at that point, Lions fans will probably cheer him, and we can get over this idea that that Lions fans stiffed Stafford and hate Stafford and whatever.
See Dark Elf's comment?
Okay. Okay.
I do have one request, because I have actually watched some of the Red Wings, and I do think it's actually very fun what they're doing. I just don't want to talk about Patrick Kane. Is that a good compromise? I don't want to talk about Patrick Kane.
Sure. It's kind of unavoidable since he's like the best player of the team right now. But
I understand that, but just because he's now wearing a Red Wings uniform does not erase a lot of things about Patrick Kane.
That's fair. You don't have to like him.
And I kind of dislike what we do in sports where everyone was very tisk about a lot of what Patrick Kane did in this city until he put on a Red Wings jersey.
Fair. He assaulted a cab driver over change or something.
Over 20 cents. Over 20 cents. He was also accused of rape. I know that got dismissed and everything too, but all very ugly stuff in regards to Patrick Kane. All in the past, but again, I find it very discomforting, given my background, when we do this, when a guy puts on a specific jersey and we paper over it.
Yep. Jamich, thank you for the 10 months. Just says more alerts. Thank you. Kula with 1 bit. I think also just trying to extend some of the alerts here. And Char Patterson, thank you for subscribing over on YouTube, which is always a good reminder that not only do we now live stream over on YouTube, but there is a whole bunch of YouTube native content done by our good buddies Miko and Morgan, who are still churning along in the off-season in terms of off-season content. A lot of that stuff, none of the stuff makes Twitch. Only some of it makes it to the website itself. We're going to try to push it more from the website in the near future, and then we're also going to be maybe expanding a little bit of what we're doing on social media in terms of promoting that stuff, in terms of promoting this stuff. So I always like to encourage people, too, if you're enjoying, like if we say something funny or someone goes on a rant that you think is particularly insightful, get your clipping fingers out. Clip your favorite moments, throw them on our Discord.
Clipping fingers?
That can help us create moments on social media.
Snip.
Snip, snap, snip, snap.
Mm.
Chris Jones or Daniil Hunter.
Man.
Door number 3 where your expectations aren't that high, but I would rather have Chris Jones if that's.
I did laugh. I'm trying to remember where I saw that. I think it might have been from First Takes. Someone called Chris Jones the most underrated player on the Chiefs roster. Ryan.
Why? Who said that?
I need to go see who said it, but it was it's one of those statements where you just kind of fall out of your chair.
One of the best defensive players in football. Underrated.
Yeah, underrated. It's the opposite of Aaron Donald. Not a really good run defender.
We are almost into March history. Madness. I am not feeling this college basketball season though, and I got to imagine a lot of Michigan,
watching, bro.
It feels like everyone in the state of, but I feel like everyone in the state of Michigan is mad at either Tom Izzo or Juwan Howard.
Yeah, maybe a little bit because Tom Izzo, I talked about great people. That guy seems like he's like way past it. But anyways, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, in state, not so great, but there's a lot of good stuff happening around college basketball. What about storming the floor? Where are we at in that debate?
I think I love it because I was doing some shows over the weekend where It's like, oh, well, but Wake Forest was favored. They were a 6-point favorite or whatever. They shouldn't have stormed the court.
2.5 point favorite.
2.5, excuse me. 2.5-point favorite. And they were favored throughout this. Why? And they're better ranked. Why are they storming the court against Duke? I'm like, because it's Duke and it's Wake Forest. And I'm guaranteeing you, no kid who gets liquored up and goes to a college basketball game, Ryan, thinks for a moment, hey, before I storm the court, let me make sure, what was the point spread? Are we favored? No, all they see is Duke has been beating our ass forever, and they're arrogant as shit about it, so fuck them. I do think, though, the question of storming the court itself, like, Jeremy, I know we talk about fan behavior a lot, and I know this is a common theme for you, but I guess when I look at storming the court, how do you stop it? How do you stop it? Because those kids storming the court, they don't care if their team's going to get fined. They don't care if their school is going to have to pay a penalty or anything. You're certainly not going to hire enough security to stop thousands of kids suddenly rushing onto the court.
Barriers.
What's the solution?
Gates.
Cops, more guns.
I don't know. I've always had a weird thing with basketball and courtside seats and all this sort of stuff. Like, it seems like it's always been the fans are way too close to the action, and at some point it's going to cost someone more than a knee injury, whether it's a player or a fan. There's all these cutesy videos of like huge men jumping into crowds and toppling over people in courtside seats, and I'm just like, it's funny now, but someone's gonna eventually get like very hurt.
Well, you remember it was just like a couple weeks ago too that Caitlin Clark,
right?
From Iowa, she got clipped by the Ohio State fan.
Yep.
I don't know, like that it's two high profile things, and Clark being a big time player and Filipkowski being a big player for Duke.
But I think the Duke kid got injured, but I think he also initiated contact or something. I'm trying to remember the whole thing. I do like Polar Polish's idea, have one dedicated fan rusher like Detroit Mercy.
I don't know.
One kid who... No.
I get why it's fun. I get why college kids are excited about it, but I'm going to be the old man waving at the cloud here. Like, I don't need court storming. I don't need field storming in football either. I don't need taking down the goalpost and carrying them into a river. It's funny, no, I'll admit that, but it's just like we don't need that. Like,
I agree with you, but again, I'm speaking more from a practical side. Like, I agree that it's kind of gotten a little bit too dangerous out there, that it was a cool tradition for a while, and now it's just kind of gotten to a very dangerous point. But again, speaking from a practical solutions angle, what's the solution? Like, we're going to put up just giant walls between like, we're just going to put up giant 10-foot walls in these stadiums, in these arenas or something? Like, what's the actual practical solution here to stop it? And I keep coming up with, there's no way to stop this.
I think you can get creative. Like, I honestly, like, even those like barred gates that are only like 3 or 4 feet tall, like, you can easily jump them, but that extra level, right? That extra level of effort would probably
speed bumps.
Speed bumps. Human speed bumps, not speed bumps that are made out of humans. Speed bumps designed to slow humans.
Speaking of which, I saw I saw the most dangerous game played for a pep assembly that I've ever seen played, like 2 weeks ago here at the high school.
Was it ice football? Because we already talked about that.
No, that would have been that would have still been second to this one. Okay. I could not believe that anybody got the okay for this. So just imagine this. So people were essentially rolling pins. So they had like each class, like freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors. They had like 5 or 6 of them that were just lined up, laying down, and they flipped over a lunch table and put the lunch table on the kids, and you have to roll to get the lunch table to go from one end of the court to the other end of the court. And there were so many edges of tables because people were rolling out of sync that were just jamming into people's kidneys that I cannot imagine that some of these kids weren't peeing blood over the weekend. Like the tables had to keep on like getting like put back on them. But like, I was like, as soon as I saw it, like at first I didn't know what they were going to do with it, and then they started doing it, and I wanted like it was almost like my concerned parent thing kicked in, where I like just wanted to run out and be like, no, this is like way unsafe. Like nobody should be doing this. And like people are getting like hit in the head with like a lunch, like the corner of a lunch table is not insignificant. Like I could see it didn't look like a good time. I wouldn't do that.
Silver Rush, the one Oregon State University football game I went to, we were invited to the field after the players left, very orderly. I know Clemson does that like every game, and people just all like, it's very funny watching people on Twitter and Reddit confuse it with field storming when it's something Clemson does, fans do after every game where they go to the middle of the field. But I do say this from experience as someone who has been to Wake Forest basketball games. Like, kids who go to college football games versus the kids who go to college basketball games, you are blitzed out of your mind so much more in a college basketball game. You are
really.
I am no. I was gone. I was gone beyond gone whenever I went to a Wake Forest basketball game.
Michigan basketball wasn't good when I went there, but I felt like there wasn't much tailgating before basketball games, whereas obviously you're drinking from 9 a.m. to noon on Saturdays.
It might have just been that time for Wake Forest basketball too. Like when I was there, Chris Paul was playing. And also at the same time, Wake Forest had a good program where they would like help get you over to the Winston-Salem Coliseum. So there was a lot of drinking at the dorms for a lot of that. But I just feel like college basketball crowds are just so much more hostile.
Yeah, I mean it's a more intimate setting too, right?
Yeah,
like you're closer to the action. You can actually impact the game a little bit more because they can hear you. Like you could scream something during
you're whipped into a frenzy,
and the people can literally hear you. Nap Dance Queen, they give the 14-month subscribe to the channel, says POD is expanding to new platforms. Is Ryan running the official POD TikTok? Now, we do know that Ryan has a lot of experience with TikTok. It's its favorite social media platform.
This is like one of the dumbest bits of all time.
But no, we do have a TikTok page. It has been dormant for a few months here, but we are planning to kind of reinvigorate it a little bit. Not with Ryan. Although he's welcome to help out if he wants.
Ryan is young enough. He understands it best.
Just don't tap into all that experience that I have with it, apparently. I actually saw an Instagram reel the other day of like somebody, those like impromptu interviews that happen on the street. And this guy was like interviewing a girl. He's like, "What's your biggest ick?" And then there was some girl who was like, "Any guy who like sends me an Instagram reel." And I was like, "Oh, good thing I'm married." It's all.
Oh man,
I got to cut that shit out though. Sometimes, like, do you guys find yourself scrolling and then like you get the ick? Like you're like, "Oh, what?" I just spent way too much time doing that.
Yes, all the time.
A little bit. A little bit. It helps that I'm not on Instagram. Like I've tried doing Instagram. It's just I just don't. It's hard for me to get into Instagram quite a bit. I do get sent more videos on TikTok than ever, so I should probably at least like actually make an account on there just so every time I open up a video someone sends me, Jeremy, that it doesn't like demand me do a puzzle to prove I'm not a bot.
It's worth it because the time that takes is not worth the time you're going to lose by joining an infinite scrolling app. That infinite scrolling is the worst social media invention of all time.
Is that why I think that's why Threads felt as bad as it did when we all tried Threads?
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, Blue Sky opened up, and I don't think anyone really noticed.
Nope.
But Threads, I keep getting push notifications for Threads on my phone. I just keep thinking I should probably uninstall Threads. I am surprised at the number of people I know who still post over on Threads. But at the same time, I know still if I hit that, button at the top to refresh the feed, it's designed to be infinite scrolling.
Yeah.
And that's when they start spamming you with verified people who like
No,
it's I again, not on TikTok, but what Threads does with the feeds to be infinite is skeevy.
Yeah, no, I time travel when I'm on TikTok. I look up and it's I literally had to set a limit on my phone. You can do that with apps to be like 15 minutes. That's it. That's all I'm giving myself a day. If I'm like, I don't know.
Over that, like that, yeah.
And the frustrating part about TikTok and all those apps is like, if you spend 2 seconds more than you wanted to watching a video, suddenly you're just going to get bombarded with that same shit over and over again. Like a year ago, I watched a full video of someone narrating a miniature golf session with his buddies. And I cannot get that out of my algorithm as much as I try. I'm not interested in you play-by-playing mini golf.
Yeah.
You were, though.
I was one time. I'm just like, what am I watching?
You were, though, so they think you are now.
No,
moving forward.
I do fall down holes on YouTube and like Wikipedia and stuff. So I mean, I'm already kind of doing that, but
you're
reading feels different though. It doesn't feel as
usually
mindless.
on YouTube it's like usually a pretty engaging video, or it's like food or something about cars or something. Like it's actually like worthwhile. Like I feel like I'd get on TikTok and just get like garbage thrown at me.
If I could control my algorithm better and make it just dog videos and recipes, I would love TikTok. It's impossible to do.
I think that's kind of why I root for YouTube Shorts to take over TikTok at some point, because I feel like that's what you get. Like YouTube's algorithm is at least a lot better with that, and their Shorts platform is pretty decent. But
all right, before we get back into it,
I have one more thing before we get back into it. But yeah, go on.
There is a Lions question on YouTube I'd like to talk about. Do we want? I would also like to talk about Qantas stickers, and if we're not going to do it on the podcast, I'd rather do it in break.
Yeah.
The Ronin on YouTube asks, why are some people clamoring to trade Hendon Hooker after we finally solidify the backup quarterback issue? No one seriously is, I mean, I shouldn't say no one, but anyone who is serious about what this team is building is not suggesting that. Yeah, it's not going to happen. He has no trade value as someone who has not played a single NFL game or
there's no trade value. What are you doing?
Yeah. I know there are desperate teams out there to find a quarterback, but I don't know how many of them are looking to trade for a 28-year-old quarterback who is coming off an ACL injury, who hasn't proven a thing, hasn't even played in a preseason game.
The years of teams going after, and I'm sorry to the Lions fans for saying this, but the years of teams going after guys like Scott Mitchell just because they were the backup to another quarterback in another system, that's not... No.
Listen,
no, I don't. That's not the market. Hendon Hooker doesn't have a market.
And
How can you sell him if he doesn't have a market?
I'm sorry. The Lions have no interest in trading him either. Like,
yes.
They drafted him with a 3rd overall pick. They brought him back from the NFI list last year just so he could practice. They had no interest in playing him. They wanted him to develop. It was important for him to develop. Half of the reason they signed Teddy Bridgewater was to help him develop. There is no interest from this team to trade Hendon Hooker. It does not make any sense from a team building standpoint. It does not make any sense for any team to trade for Hendon Hooker. It is a dumb idea.
He's been a sponge for everything the Lions want. Like, even I think we've had more than a few reports, Jeremy, about how much he's sitting there learning everything about the system, learning everything about how this team operates, and like being praised for how active he is with the coaching staff around here. Yeah, that sounds like a guy they're going to jettison just so they can try to get some draft capital from some poor slag team so they can do this all over again. No, that's ludicrous.
Anyways, I've seen. I'm not trying to come at you.
This is the first I've heard of it.
It's not for me. Like I've seen people talk about it. I've gotten DMs about it. I just wanted to throw it out there because it's absurd to me that anyone is talking about that as a real possibility.
It's my favorite phrase. It's clever by half.
Yeah.
You say something that you think in the moment sounds clever, but as soon as you start to pick at it even a little bit, it's not actually smart. It comes off as being smart. It comes off as being kind of out there, but it has no basis and no grounding in any kind of actual actionable logic.
I know it wasn't your idea, Ronan. That's why I wanted to go out of my way there and saying, like, I'm not trying to attack you.
Yeah.
In fact, the way you phrased it was very much like, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? And my answer is no, I don't get it either. All right, Qantas Stiggers. Let me talk about him, just because I'm not going to sit here and tell you like he's going to be an all-star cornerback or anything, but it's a fascinating story to me. He's a guy that went to college to play D2 football, ended up having to drop out because of the death of his father and COVID. All happened kind of at the same time. Didn't end up playing college at all. Basically was like, I'm not playing football anymore. And his mom's like, hey, there's this league called the fan-controlled football here on Twitch. Why don't you try out? That'd be fun, right? He goes, he tries out, he makes it. He gets 5 interceptions in the 1 year that league existed. It may have lasted 2 years, but in the 1 year he played there, he got 5 interceptions. I believe he was like even in the MVP discussion for the league, and that parlays into a tryout for the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL. He makes a team. He enters training camp with absolutely zero expectations. This guy hasn't played any college ball. Of course he has no expectations. Throughout training camp, he wins a starting job. So he starts the league as a starter, despite the fact he didn't get drafted into the CFL. He didn't play at the college ball level. His only experience is high school and a league that 90% of football fans don't even know exists. And not only does he win a starting job, he ends up winning Rookie of the Year, or Most Outstanding Rookie, because Canadians have to do everything differently, including the Rookie of the Year award.
They measure things differently over there, Jeremy.
Yeah, it is. They have a different measuring metric for rookies.
Yeah,
it's the metric system.
I don't think PFF's grades are any different, but he had the fourth.
Yeah, they're imperial.
He had the 4th highest coverage grade of any player in the CFL, not just rookies. And now, he also impressed at the Shrine game, reportedly. I can't speak for that. I didn't watch the Shrine game or the Shrine practices, but people were pretty impressed with what he did. And so now that he's 3 years out of high school, he's finally eligible to be drafted, and he's going to try to enter in the Lions. And the whole reason why I'm talking about him is because there's a report out there that the Lions are going to bring him in for a top 30 visit. And so, I don't know. I think that's super cool. Like, you have to have a lot of mental toughness to go through all that and play at a high level. Is he going to like be this 6th, 7th round guy that the Lions draft that ends up being a starter? Probably not, but
so I do have a question, because I was thinking about it as I was reading this too.
Yeah.
So how does this work as like an NFL draft from CFL? Because usually we get them as free agency signings, Jeremy.
Yes.
So like I'm trying to figure out like why he is draft eligible coming from the CFL when he's already playing pro football. I mean, this would make a lot more sense to me, I guess, if he was coming out of like, say, a Canadian university where they play college, Canadian football or something. So I'm just trying to figure out why, like, versus someone like Metz last week, who was signed like free agent, but Stiggers plays in the Shrine Bowl and he's going to be in this draft.
It's a great question, and one I had to dive down to find the answer to. You're not the only person that asked this question that was curious about it.
We should probably let's make sure. Let's do this again in the podcast. But yeah.
The reason is because he was not eligible until this year to even be in the NFL draft, because you have to be at least 3 years out of high school to enter the NFL draft.
It's just because he was so young. Okay.
Yes, and so you are not allowed to enter the NFL until you go through the draft process. And so even if you go undrafted, you have to go through that process before you can sign to the NFL. And so this is him going through that process for the first year that he is eligible to do so. I don't know what the rules are on the CFL and why he could immediately join the CFL and all that. But for the NFL, you have to be 3 years out of high school to go through the draft process. And once you go through the draft process once, then you can sign as a free agent.
So as far as I can tell, he's had 2 years of experience then playing football.
Yes.
Out of high school.
The FCN.
Okay. FCN and 1 year with the Argos. Right.
FCF.
FCF and 1 year with the Argos.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this is his 3rd year out of high school.
I do know I have on a short list of people to talk to this offseason, Bucky Brooks. I know Bucky Brooks always calls the Shrine game. It's something I need to ask about. I bet you Chris's gold chain he makes the team. Unfortunately for you, this gold chain is pretty cheap.
No, is that fortunate or unfortunate if you're betting it?
Nordstrom's rack. I don't know. I've been distracted by this story that I'm sorry. This is one of my oddball things. We should just do kind of formalize these in between break segments and like just call it grab bag or something where we get to Lions stuff or whatever. But I think we've talked enough about our habits with fast food.
Okay.
It's one of our favorite topics to talk about. Wendy's wants to use like surge pricing on their menu starting next year. The idea being that like if you order a Baconator during peak hours, it will cost you more versus if you ordered it at like, I don't know, 4 p.m.
That would honestly deter me from going there.
This feels like reading this article from Gizmodo. It feels like this is some corporates being like, oh, we'll see a great growth in sales right away, and not understanding that it's just going to completely destroy anyone's desire to go there.
Yeah, that seems dumb. I mean, I get why that you do it from a capitalistic standpoint. Like,
yeah, it's like
if
Uber,
I'm McDonald's,
like
I'm surging prices at 10:25 a.m. for my breakfast items. But yeah, no, don't do that.
That's crazy. I mean, you guys ever try to go to a fast food restaurant at lunchtime? It's insane.
Yeah, I never did.
It's even worse for Wendy's because Wendy's is literally, I don't know why it's every Wendy's I've gone to, but their drive-through lines, they're not always the longest, Ryan, but it only takes like 3 cars and you are going to be stuck there for 15 minutes waiting to get to the window.
No, thank you.
And don't raise the price of the Taco Bell box, all right? I know they have done that in certain parts of the country. And you've already done it from $5 to $6 here. $5 to $6.
Every time I see that Taco Bell menu about like the cheap item pricing, I just scream, that's a fucking lie in California, you sickos. Oh, it's $2. No, it's $3. It's like $3.50 for the enchilada chicken burrito.
I have to like regularly check in now and make sure the Build Your Own Cravings box is still only $5.99, and it is. I just breathed a sigh of relief.
Verified. I'm happy for you.
I check that almost as much as I check where my keys are at. Which
you want to give everybody an update on that?
I did on Twitter already, and there's sadly no update from there. I am a bit concerned that the updates have stopped coming since Thursday. That kind of makes me feel like someone destroyed it.
Or it's run out of juice on it.
It's also possible. But it was at a complex that has a FedEx in it, which makes me slightly hopeful that someone is mailing it back to me. But no one contacted me.
Yeah.
But if you there was a QR code on it, and if you scanned it, it gave him my information. So
yeah.
Anyways,
Big Aries asks, how many Taco Bell points do you have, Jeremy?
I spend them all, so probably not that much.
That's actually a good question. How many points do you think you have the most of in all of these fast food apps?
Oh, I have 3,600 total points, but only 100 to spend. Mm-hmm. If that's your answer.
I have 9,931 points on my McDonald's app right now.
Ooh, I probably have a lot of McDonald's.
I actually just spent some off of here. I actually just turn the screen down. I actually just took some. I just bought something off of it, so like I actually had even more for a really long time.
I just got the most offensive YouTube comment I've ever seen.
Hold on. I do need to show my Jersey Mike's balance because it just basically doubled. I have 2 free subs on here.
What are we doing right now?
I know. Go on, Jeremy. What's the
Bashir
offensive comment?
on YouTube says Jeremy definitely only uses mild sauce.
I only use
Those
mild
are
sauce
fighting
because it's the
words.
only good flavor of sauce at Taco Bell.
What?
No, it's fire. It's fire
What?
sauce.
No, you guys are wrong. This conversation's dumb.
What is the answer, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's
what is
fire.
the answer?
I don't.
okay.
Fire sauce doesn't taste good.
Is that the extreme is beyond that? Diablo
No,
or whatever?
I
don't do
it
Diablo.
goes mild,
And not
hot,
because it's not too
fire,
hot.
Diablo. Yeah.
But fire sauce. Yeah, fire. Come on.
Yeah.
Bashir. You don't know me.
Diablo isn't hot. That is true.
See, now we're gonna do this thing. Oh, it's not even really that hot.
All right. We should get back into it.
Let's do the hot one stream. When are we gonna do the hot one stream?
We
That's
have a
what
lot
I
of
wanna
streams
know.
we have to do.
We do have a lot of streams we have to.
I'm gonna start
That's what
mapping
the
them
people
out.
want to know.
Yeah.
I
do
actually
need to. I did just get a big refund. I just got a refund for a computer part, so I can finally buy like a new camera and then set up some of the stuff for the cooking stream.
Huzzah!
cooking stream, wing stream, suspenders. Stream.
Overalls.
Overalls.
Stream.
Yeah.
I still have to drink a liver and onion smoothie.
Oh,
Yeah. I still have to eat a cereal bowl full of beans.
I still have to polar plunge, which I probably better do pretty quickly here because it's starting to get nice out.
yeah.
Although I could just fill a tub with ice and do that. There's one more.
And then we harvest your kidneys.
Then you harvest my kidneys. Oh, karaoke stream we have to do. And I also have to walk through a grocery store with yoga pants on. So I haven't forgotten any of those things. Let it be clear. But yeah, we'll get to them. But yes, break is over. All right.
All right, break's over.
Thank you to Daniel Cohn for subscribing and Woodchuck Hunter for 100 bits, who said, I thought Qantas stickers was stickers made by Qantas Cephas. No, Quintez Cephas.
Quintez Cephas.
Oh, I forgot to
I
do that,
guess my
Joe.
question is with the stickers thing, I'd like to fit it in here, but like, do we have time to do that and all this other stuff? Like,
If we're going to make it a 2-segmenter, absolutely not.
okay.
And I think considering we just went 50 minutes on break, we probably should just do a 2-segmenter.
Yeah, I thought the plan was 2-segment. It doesn't feel like a 3-segment day, so.
Yeah. So we'll just go full NFL Combine this segment and get out of here.
I'll just make a note about stickers. We can probably, I might have someone I can tap as far as like trying to ask them about that down the line.
Well, we are doing a first bite this week. Not on him, but on a different CFL guy. And
We're
I'm
actually
just now
getting
realizing I didn't tell Ryan
They
about
have
that.
beat writers for the CFL?
Yeah. But he
It's not John Whitaker, is it?
no. Whitaker helped set it up. So shout out to John Whitaker.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about
Someone
Betts.
from the Globe and Mail.
Matthew Betts, and if I can get in a question about Quantes, maybe I will. Anyways,
The CFL first bite. Just what you people always wanted.
they said it could never happen, and
No,
they
you said it could never happen.
and they said they didn't want it, but we're doing
you
it
said
anyways.
you didn't want it. Ask Justin Fields. Justin,
Dang.
we're
Liam.
gonna do this so I don't have to talk about Justin Fields on the dumbest stories ever that someone unfollows an account.
Yeah, I'm never. Hold me to this, chat. Hold me to if you ever see me write a story about Jared Goff suddenly unfollows the Lions. Call me out on my bullshit, saying, Jeremy, that's not news. Stop being an idiot.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I heard people saying, well, you wouldn't unfollow your employer on social media.
Sure I would.
Yes, I would. I've done it. And they've never noticed.
I blocked Daily Norseman. Doesn't mean we won't reach out to them for some preview stuff. They deserve it, though.
No, a different employer. I'm sorry. I have thought about blocking Jeremy a few times.
That feeling is mutual. I know for a fact some of our employees have maybe muted or blocked other employees at times. We all go through it.
I mean, guilty. Guilty.
What, Joshua?
I've never done anything like that. So.
You know what? Let's talk about the NFL Combine.
Yeah, you can't delay it any longer. So
I did a lot of research for this segment, so I'll have you know I'm all in on the offseason now. Let's go.
I do want to. Are we going to fit it in for the podcast? I do want to ask, because I kept thinking this entire week about that Harif Hassan piece of what am I doing at the Senior Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with someone at work who's been to the Combine, and it feels like the Combine is one of those places where it's, why the fuck am I at the NFL Combine?
I still have never been, and I feel like I'm kind of doing a disservice to not.
It's the same thing as the Senior Bowl. It feels like it's just for most people
to network.
Right?
Yeah.
It sounds like not even a lot of scouts and GMs are going just because they already have the tape, or they're going to just do the pro days or whatever.
The thing that I feel like I'm missing out on most is there's a semi-intimate media session with the new coaches. So the new D-line coaches will most likely talk with media. It's not going to be televised though. It's not going to be there might not even ever be video of it. But I think it's a good intro point there, and it's a good intro point to meet some of the prospects. Other than that, the media leaves while the drills are going on. After all the media sessions with the players is over, everyone leaves.
Yeah, normal people go. The NFL wants normal people to go. They want fans to go. They've been trying to turn this into a TV thing. They've been trying to sell tickets to Indianapolis. They've been wanting to move it around the country. They want fans to go. I don't know why you would, but anyway, we should start it up.
I'm ready.
Pride to Detroit PODcast. We got a lot coming this week. We're going to talk to a CFL expert. I did not realize I would ever say those words out of my mouth about bets and about a Lions who hosted a CFL Rookie of the Year, Quantez Stiggers, who is actually top 30 visit. He's going to be eligible for the NFL draft. Jeremy was just explaining in the break why he's draft eligible, and I think that's something we'll dive into on that first bite. So there's a lot we kind of left on the bone as far as news this week, but we do want to move on to the NFL Combine. I struggle sometimes to see why the Combine is still important sometimes, but I do think there is a value, Jeremy, in getting guys on the field and having an apples to apples comparison in the form of these times and specific drills. I understand more guys pull out, more guys stop participating, but just at least having that baseline benchmark and seeing things outside of just the tape still has some use. And it lets our friend Kentley Platty put out his amazing RAS scorecards as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not all that interested in the drills. I never really have been because I think film trumps all, but it is nice to have an easily digestible athletic score, see what they're good at in terms of long-term speed, short-term speed, explosion, all that sort of stuff. All that's nice, but I think Brad Holmes put it best this morning when he said, the NFL Combine is for checking boxes athletically. In general, everything we see on the field is going to match what we already knew about them, and if it doesn't, then that's an opportunity just for it to go back. But the real value for teams are, and unfortunately as media members and fans, we don't get this kind of aspect of the NFL Combine. It's the player interviews. That is where, in particularly a team like the Lions, who have a very strict culture, guidelines, those interviews are everything. And there's a reason why when the Lions do their behind the den type of thing, they show a lot of those clips from the NFL Combine, because that is why, I mean, that's why teams are in attendance. There are some teams that don't attend anymore, but I think that's what they're mainly missing out, is that character evaluation that you get from those interviews. And so that's kind of what I think I'm going to kind of take from the Combine a little bit more. Like, I can read a spreadsheet in terms of how fast they are, how long they are, all that sort of stuff. But I want to pay attention to the media sessions of these players. I want to pay attention to how are they reacting on the field in between drills. Are they rah-rah guys that are encouraging everybody? Are they taking to coaching tips? Are they invested? Are they paying attention when it's not their turn? Those are kind of like the intangible stuff that I think the Lions are going to pay attention to, and I think that's kind of more of the value than just like, okay, he ran this in the 40. Okay, he has this, his arm length is this. Like, those are important guidelines, but they're not what I think should be these teams' primary focus when it comes to evaluating these players at a limited event like the Combine.
What do you think of the Combine, Chris? Are you just mad that it's still in Indianapolis?
I mean, I think I just get kind of annoyed by how much love Indianapolis gets. It's like, oh, this is cute. And it's like, but the big value of the Combine in Indianapolis is still that everything's kind of just in one place, right? It's near the convention center. It's close to the airport. We're going to hear about Elmo's again, and everyone will go home happy. So, like, I think, again, there's more value. I think that there's more value in the drills than Jeremy is alluding to, but in that we at least have the baselines to work with. But I do think it's something that's been challenged recently as far as how valuable these are, especially as kids put more emphasis on their pro days from their universities, which is kind of a struggle for the NFL because they clearly want to make the Combine part of their calendar. They clearly want this on TV. They wanted to try to sell tickets for this thing, and they wanted several times to move it out of Indianapolis and have it as a traveling circus like the draft, which used to always be in New York, and they hit upon the inspired idea that the draft is going to move around the country. They want to do the same thing with the Combine. So it kind of feels like on one hand, the league wants to put emphasis on it because they want to sell it. But at the same time, our particular like professional side of the NFL that actually has the scouting part of the Combine is putting less and less emphasis, at least in the traditional stuff that goes on for television. Just a hard one to figure out, Ryan.
It is a hard one to figure out, but it's not going to be so hard to figure out. These prospects that we're about to talk about that we're excited to see at the Combine.
And I do want to see certain things on the field from some of these guys because I feel like they are. It's always funny because I feel like we find stories each year, Jeremy, on like guys who weren't on our radars, or we talk about improving their stock of the Combine. And that is mostly narrative, but it's still fun narrative to dive into. And we've all picked out 4 players total for each of us, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, who I think we want to see that we want to watch for various reasons. Either we think their stock could rise. We want to see how they will impress either in those meetings or off the field like Jeremy's talking about, or even just a 40-yard time or whatever on the field in the drills. So I think we should start on offense, Jeremy, and just kind of get right into it.
Sure.
Top of my list right now is probably the best pure guard in this draft for me, and that's Christian Haynes out of the University of Connecticut. I'm trying to find my card right here on him right now, actually. But he's, there's a lot of other guys who are kind of across the board, but with Jonah Jackson probably not being back with the Lions, Graham Glasgow probably, ? We have to see still. There is a need for interior offensive lineman. Christian Haynes right now, about 6 foot, a little under 6'3", a little under 320 pounds, about a over 80-inch wingspan or so, but he's not a lot of people are watching Connecticut football, but he had a very dominant Senior Bowl performance, and his stock has been nothing but rising right now from being just a 2-star recruit coming out of high school and turning into, what was it? I think he was a redshirt senior, Ryan, like played a while in college and now finally coming out. It's something I've wanted to see, and I think could probably be a day 2 target for the Detroit Lions. Just has to impress here again, I want the apples to apples right now. And unfortunately, linemen are like last day up in the combine, but for the Lions, probably a very important day all the same.
Yeah, just from you throwing his name out there and me doing a little bit of digging on him, I think one of the things that's maybe most impressive about him is that, UConn canceled their 2020 season for COVID reasons, but Haynes started 49 straight games. I mean, that's the type of stuff that you love to see from offensive linemen, especially interior offensive linemen, is toughness and durability, and we know how much that counts for this organization and their coaching staff, and how much the health of their players along the interior of that offensive line has been shaky to say the least over the past 3 years. So
a guy who can really
durable guy would help.
Yeah, just someone in college who had a lot of knockback power, a lot of power to push that line, which is exactly what the Lions want in their run game. So who do you have, Ryan?
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Should I do my second one?
No.
Let's we go round table. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it round. Okay.
So I have a player for you that's more fun than a guard. It's wide receiver Keon Coleman from Florida State. I think he's a really interesting name for a Lions team that finds themselves at a bit of a crossroads. Like, Josh Reynolds makes all the sense in the world. I think it's going to be a situation this offseason, though, personally. And I have no understanding of whether or not Josh Reynolds would want to come back to Detroit in the sense that he loves it here. It seems like he does, right? But it seems very much akin to DJ Shark, and Josh Reynolds has an opportunity to maybe go get a bigger contract and a bigger role and more opportunities somewhere else, because clearly those opportunities sort of went away as Jameson Williams got worked into the offense. But if Josh Reynolds doesn't come back, I think that leaves the Lions in a bit of a lurch in terms of maybe wide receivers for the future, right? I mean, they have Antoine Green that they drafted, Khalif Raymond's still under contract, but not exactly a young player, right, Jeremy? Donovan Peoples-Jones, who knows what the Lions are going to do there. Keon Coleman would be a guy who he would probably have to be picked 29 if he's there. Maybe he sneaks into the second day of the draft, but he's just an incredible wide receiver, and this has nothing to do with the fact that he played for Michigan State. If you see, he's a highlight reel player.
Yep.
He's a big body guy. He's 6'4". He's not a separator, but I think that's what we love about Josh Reynolds. Not a separator, but good at the catch point. Contested catches, making plays in the red zone. I think that's something that the Lions offense lacks in terms of their wide receivers, right? It seems like, hey, we have to run a rub route or something creative for Amon-Ra or Laporta, or we have to get super creative. They don't have a guy that they can just, not that I'm advocating for, just jump ball plays in the end zone, Jeremy, but Keon Coleman would seem like he could factor into the Lions' needs in the here and now and going forward as well.
I definitely think wide receivers need to be clear. Whether Josh Reynolds signs or not, wide receiver is very much a potential need.
Might not be a first round need.
No, but I agree. I think it's a need. If Keon Coleman is there, and based on everything that I know right now, which is very little, I don't think he's going to be there. I think he goes higher than 29. But if he's there, I think he's absolutely someone you consider. I also listed a wide receiver that I'm kind of fascinated by. It's more of a mid-round guy, Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. And I'm kind of fascinated because I did a little bit of research on him, and the opinions on this guy are all over the damn place. Some people think he could be a round 2 pick. Some people think he could fall into deep day 3 conversations. He's got size. He's 6'1", 217, so he fits that X role. He's been a captain, which is going to be a bit of a theme between the guys that I'm picking because, again, I do think that character is going to play a big part. I know that character is going to play a big part. But this guy had almost no production through the first 4 years at South Carolina, and he absolutely blew up last year. 1,255 yards, 7 touchdowns. The thing I'm looking for, though, is his speed, because long-distance speed, he's got it. He was clocked in at 22.3 miles per hour, and we know how much the MPH matters to Brad Holmes. but it's the short distance stuff that he lacks. He's also not much of a separator. I would say his route running is a little bit lackluster. So, like, if I'm paying attention to the drills, I'm looking at like the shuttle for him. I want to see how much change of direction he has. I want to see the 10 split, the 20 split of his 40-yard dash. How quickly can he get that motor moving? Because I think he struggles in his release. And so, again, good with contested catches. He's got pretty decent hands. I know he had one bad drop at the Senior Bowl, but he's a guy that, like, he's got some really interesting physical attributes. I think there are some similarities to what he does to Jameson Williams, but he's got stronger hands. I think he's more of he uses his physicality a little bit more because he's way bigger than Jameson Williams. He's 217. So I'm very intrigued with him, and I'm hoping he puts up some better short distance speed numbers.
I'm going deep for my next one too. I almost feel like this guy could be a day 3 pick, maybe late day 2, but Jeremy, I might be going a little wild here, thinking about tight end 2 as a need. Absolutely. Lions, I'm not sure what to remind me. I've completely blanked, but Brock Wright is not back with this.
Not yet. I can't remember if he's a restricted free agent or a regular free agent, but either way, he still needs to be re-signed, and I don't think they're going to.
He still needs to be re-signed. We don't know what's going to happen with Shane Zylstra, but not like Shane Zylstra was seeing any real need, and we've yet to see James Mitchell really pan out to much of it. So, like, I'm looking at Arizona's Tanner McLachlan, who, I've seen comps to him to like Cade Otton. He took a while. Like, he really wanted to play at Arizona. He ended up. I think he ended up being a transfer. He started with Southern Utah, tore his ACL, but then ended up going over and walked on to Arizona because he wanted to play for Arizona just really badly. So already someone who's he knows what he wants. He goes out there and just doesn't mind that kind of challenge in it, and it ended up being a second team all Pac-12 player. The ACL is an issue, but I think that also kind of fits a Brad Holmes, MO of targeting players who maybe there's a little few dings on the box. But I think what separates him right now, he's a fairly developed blocker. Probably needs to still improve a little bit in the area, but someone not a tight end who just can't block. He's someone who can lines up in line, and he's quick. He's tall. He's got long arms. Knows how to find openings in zone coverage. This is a guy who I think that, while not a particular strong development of need, if he performs well and posts very good athletic scores, this could be someone that the Lions just take to add another piece to the arsenal, and seems to fit a lot with, you talk about character, Jeremy, and it feels like Tanner McLachlan is someone who could be a good chance to blow away certain teams with interviews. Could be a high character guy and has the traits to really succeed at doing both blocking and pass catching as a tight end. Let's throw it back into reverse. So we'll go back to Jeremy this time.
Well, I'm going to go back to the offensive line with my next pick. And I'm kind of going the opposite route of, instead of finding a late round sleeper, I am talking about a guy that the Lions are going to have to trade up to get. And why am I talking about that with an offensive lineman? Because I'm wild like that. That's why. I'm going to go with Oregon State offensive tackle / guard. That's the bucket I'm putting him in. He was the right tackle at Oregon State. Talisa Fuaga. This guy was the best run blocker in football. He's an absolute mauler. He's got the athleticism required for the Lions scheme in terms of getting those guys out in space and running. To me, I think he projects as a guard, and that might lower his value a little bit to maybe where he slips a little bit closer to the line so they don't have to shell out their entire draft capital to get there. But man, he is an extremely fun guy to watch. Again, another captain. Jeff Schwartz loves him, and Jeff Schwartz knows Pac-12 football, and he knows offensive line football. I watched his whole video on him, and yeah, it's easy to see why you would love a guy like that, because, I mean, we know this team wants to run the ball. That's what they want to do. That's their identity. And so if you let Jonah Jackson go, this guy slips into left guard, and you have him and Frank next to each other. Like, you can run left and you can run right now because you got Panay on the right, you got this guy on the left. that to me is like, if you thought the run game was good now, wait until you see Talise Fuanga on the Lions offensive line. Again, realistic, is this team going to trade up and draft a guard or a guy who can play tackle? Probably not. But he's just.
But maybe.
Brad
Holmes.
Right.
And Brad Holmes, crazy like a fox.
And maybe you play him guard for a couple years, and then once Taylor Decker is done, you move Panay to left and you move Fuaga to right. Like, this gives you some really interesting options down the line. And there's always like one Brad Holmes quote that sticks with me throughout the entire offseason. And this year, it was when he was asked about the offensive line. His response was, "That'll be in an area that will not be overlooked." They are going to address their offensive line in this draft. And it wouldn't surprise me if they just do it at 29. It'd probably surprise me a little bit if they traded up and do it. But if they love this guy, and I have every reason to believe they would fall in love with this guy for everything that he does on the field and off. Really interesting idea.
Yeah.
That is not Penei Sewell's cousin. But we are about to talk about him, I believe.
I think we are. Friend of the show, Ben Raven. I know he slotted this player to the Lions in his mock draft, but Washington Husky offensive tackle Troy. Let me make sure I'm getting the pronunciation right, because I know it's important on the show and in all things. So Fautano.
Fautano, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting, and I won't take up too much of the air, but I think the idea here is maybe some tackle guard versatility.
Yep.
You have a guy who could potentially slot in and play guard to begin his career with Taylor Decker not getting any younger. There's always the thought of the succession plan, and whether that's moving Panay from right to left or getting somebody who can just fill in to left because Panay is so good on the right side, and doesn't matter which side you play tackle, you need to stop edge rushers from all sides. So I think that I really like the idea of a prospect here, Jeremy, because both these guys seem like they could be there at 29.
Right.
It doesn't seem like a stretch of the imagination, just because I feel like there's a few other players in the mix along the offensive line that are more your blue chip prospects and your blue chip talent, the guys that'll go, in the early teens and even in the top 10. It's just gonna be a matter of which of those guys get squeezed all the way down to 29. But it would not shock me at all to see the Lions go offensive line at 29.
And the live audience, which is asking if any of these guys are related to Penei Sewell, the answer is no. You're all thinking of BYU's Kingsley Suamataya, but he's another guy that I think a lot of people are circling as maybe a guy that they take at 29, or if he slides into the second round, someone that, again, kind of has a little bit of that versatility as well, probably viewed a little bit more as a tackle than some of the guys that we just talked about.
All right, let's move over to the defense. And I think this is where it's going to get really interesting, because there's a lot more, I think, needs on defense that makes this a much more varied for us to kind of talk about here. I'm going to start with a cornerback, not one of the top ones on the board. I would love to talk about Quinion Mitchell, but I'm not really like I'm looking for a guy who I'm like trying to figure out, Jeremy, Ryan, that will have some burst onto the scene with the combine. I know he had very good Senior Bowl practices. I'm talking about fifth-year senior from Notre Dame, Cam Hurt, cornerback. Hurt really well impressed at the Senior Bowl. I think last at Notre Dame, or in his career at Notre Dame, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 17 passes defended. Just tall and long. Again, I think he's about 6'3", 210, but very fast. I think I was listening to some coverage from Brady Quinn, and he thinks he can see if he can make about like a 4.40 on the 40-yard time, maybe sub that. Not really among the top CBs we have, Ryan, but the measurables should probably see him get a bit of a boost. He does need to work a little bit more in man coverage. I know he's a little more experienced as far as zone, but just clean footwork across the board, and just, again, someone I think could really see some stock rising here with the more drills and more visibility he gets with the combine.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions absolutely need at least a corner, maybe 2. Who knows? We'll see how free
So.
agency goes. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Cam Hart in terms of stock, we're talking like what, late day 2, maybe early day 3.
Yeah, and I think with the way the Lions go with this draft, like just it's very easy for us to just pencil in CB at 29, but as we've talked about, there's a lot of ways they could go with this. And, if they're not feeling the CBs in round 1, they'll just gladly stick around and see what they can get in day 2. And I think that's pretty much the sweet spot of where Cam Hart will go is as a day 2 pick. So
all right.
what do you have? What do you have, Ryan?
Yeah. So my first defensive player, no surprise, both of my guys play the same position. But let's start with Darius Robinson from Missouri. He edge player, really had a breakout season this year with the Tigers. I'm trying to prepare myself for this idea that there are going to be all these edge defenders that seem like they're making their way towards the bottom of the first round, right? And it's not always where you get your impact edge players, right? Like your impact edge players are always going to be top 10 picks. That's how it goes, no matter what, every single year. So just with so many of these guys, like there's some other guys that we're going to get into too that the other guys named as far as edge defenders. But the thing I like about Darius Robinson is that he kind of screams like Dan Campbell and this kind of defense's mentality in terms of, really, really good run defender. And I know that's not the thing that anybody wants to hear for a team that so desperately wants to and needs to get to the quarterback quicker. But I saw some comparisons. Daniel Jeremiah said his evaluation is similar to Eric Armstead's coming out of college. He can do a lot of things well. Teams are going to have different visions for how to best use his abilities. But big, long, versatile defensive lineman seems like a guy that the Lions would be interested in.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where he would fit in their plans with a guy like Josh Pascal and John Kaminsky already on the team, but like those are good.
Does that seem redundant or not? Right. Like maybe you might go for a more athletic guy, but are those athletic guys available there at the end of the first round? That's the tricky part.
And also it's very clear they like those kind of guys, right? They have those guys around for a reason. They like them. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll stick with the defensive line, but go pure interior. This guy's not playing on the edge at all because he's an absolute monster. That's T'Vondre Sweat. The nose tackle. Let's be clear. He's a nose tackle out of Texas because they have him marked.
He's also my short list too, yeah.
They have him marked at 362 pounds. He is a big boy.
That's a lot of humanity.
362. He won the best interior defensive lineman in the country last year on that kind of revamped Texas defense that I believe ranked 4th in the country in run defense. And that, like, if you're getting T'Vondre Sweat, that is what you're doing. Like, you are getting an absolute run defender. He's a pure disruptor. And the thing that I love about his game is that he can bull rush you into the backfield and get a TFL, but he can also 2-gap. Like, he can stand there and just hold his ground because 2-3 people who is going to displace a 362 pounder like that. And again, like, I read a really cool character story about this guy. Like, he was kind of a little bit of a partier earlier in his career. He's a college football player. Who isn't? Our good friend Bo Davis. You remember Bo Davis? Lions defensive line coach from not too long ago. Guess where he is now? Texas. There was a kind of viral video after Texas got blown out in 2022 of him chewing out the entire bus because someone was caught laughing after this blowout. You know who that was? It's T'Vondre Sweat. He was laughing after getting blown out, and you're like, oh boy, that's not the kind of player. Like, I want a player who, when they lose, it's going to hurt them. Well, very much a turning point in that man's career, in that, like, now he is fully locked in. He took that to heart. You know, a lot of people might get offended by that, might get, angry at their coach, whatever, for getting chewed out like that. He took it. He owned it and turned his entire career around and became one of the best defensive linemen in the country last year. Now, his teammates describe him as probably the nicest, softest, down-to-earth guy, but also a very violent man on the field. And to top it all off, you know what? He can pass rush a little bit. 31 pressures last year because he is such a dominant guy. And so what I'm looking for, at the NFL Combine? A lot. Like, first of all, I'm absolutely curious how a guy who measured in at some point at 362 pounds, how's he going to move? How is that explosiveness? Does he have some of it? And also, how much is he actually going to come in and weigh in at? Because I imagine we hear it all the time from these players. When you come to the NFL Combine, you are not testing to be an NFL player. You are testing to be an NFL Combine athlete. So how much is he going to put into dropping weight so that he can flash some of those athletic skills that we did see at Texas? So I'm fascinated by, like, he's the one guy where I want to make sure I'm watching all of his drills because I want to see how he moves. And I want to see if there is some of that pass rush potential, or if you're seeing a 350-pound guy and being like, you know what, we're just going to make sure that we don't need to still cycle through guys like Isaiah Buggs and you know, Alu. We don't need, like, we just got our nose tackle for the future with this guy.
I think we all have some D linemen on here because I'm going to throw on another edge myself, because I think the most interesting prospect for what to do with 29 is putting another rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. And I'm throwing this name out there. It's Demion Robinson, better known as Chop Robinson from Penn State, because I don't know how you guys feel about him, but he is completely across the spectrum as far as what other people say about him. I think Bruce Feldman had him on his freaks list, but then I've also seen, like, Matt Miller said that he never had top 20 grades on Chop Robinson. He's about 45 to 50. It's very, I don't know if I've seen a player as variable as Chop Robinson. And yet the two, you know, mock drafts I've read from NFL, both by Cynthia Freeland, who did a statistical analytical approach to the to her draft, and to Bucky Brooks, who we've had on the show before, both of them mocked Chop Robinson at 29 to the Detroit Lions. And he's a very polarizing prospect. I think last year he clocked a 4.47 on his 40-yard time, but he actually ran a quicker shuttle to, compared to, and of course he's going to get compared to him, Micah Parsons. He was a 2023 first all Big Ten selection, about 4 sacks last year, 5.5 the year prior. What's his measurables again? 6'3", 200, over 250 pounds. Like, but I think it's just the variability on where people are looking at Chop Robinson and whether he's a freak or whether he's down near the 50 mark rather than top 20 is something that's going to make his draft capital very difficult to figure out, because clearly if draft experts are looking very differently on him, I've got to imagine teams are looking very differently on him. And I kind of want to get a better idea at the combine what he shows, because I'd like to know how the Lions think about a guy like Chop Robinson. Is he someone who they could trust putting out there opposite Aiden Hutchinson? Is he a freak athlete, or is he someone who's just more of you got to temper your expectations on him?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's the perfect candidate to only see his stock go up from the combine because he doesn't have that size, right? Like, that seems very much like in the James Houston size comparison, right? Like, you know, 6'3" under, 250 under, right? Could be a fit for like the Sam type role if the Lions want to go that way. So certainly an interesting prospect to keep an eye on. I'll throw out my other defensive player before we clean up here with Jeremy. But my other player is a local guy. So, you know, the Lions get so many, you know, extra local visits with prospects, and Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan is an interesting name that I came across. Another edge defender. The thing that's awesome about him and that I think makes him such a great fit for Detroit is, again, he fits the type, right? Like, he's just like this John Kaminsky type in terms of rugged, powerful edge defender, who, like, pretty much only wins by being able to, like, push through people. Again, it's awesome to have a guy like Terrell Williams come in, though, right? Like, a guy who can maybe coach him up.
Sure.
But the thing I love about Daniel Jeremiah's prospect rankings is Nealand's right now, he's at 49th out of the top 50 prospects. But he did say, this is how he ended his statement, was overall, Nealand isn't a special athlete, but he reminds me of a Baltimore Ravens type player. He's tough, physical, and plays with max effort. So it seems like you get a guy in here who maybe you can coach him up a little bit, but he's always going to give 110%. I mean, the thing that I loved about that sentence was it's a Baltimore Ravens type player, but like maybe in 5-6 years, we're talking about how they're Detroit Lions type players.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you see the words max effort in a college scout profile, like alarm bells should be going off in your head saying, oh, Dan Campbell knows this guy's name.
Yeah. Brad Holmes is aware of this guy, especially if he was a captain at any point during his collegiate career. But yeah, I think that just it kind of speaks to what all of us are saying right now, though, is like there's so many different options and so many different routes that the Lions can take towards addressing their defensive line, because we talked about on the Q&A show, Jeremy, like, do they view Aleem as that 3-tech guy? Well, if they do, then Tavondre Sweat makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Even if Broderick Martin is still on the roster, or hey, to Chris's prospect with Chop Robinson, if they're looking for a guy to be more of a pure pass rusher, seems like that guy could more so fit the mold. But
there's a lot of ways they could go. Are you going to go speed? Because that's always Chop's big thing. Is it going to go like, what do you value on the other side alongside Aiden Hutchinson?
Good question.
Let's move back to the edges of the defense and go back to cornerback. Obviously still a current need, but not necessarily one that's going to be a need once Lions get there to the NFL draft. And we all know Brad Holmes doesn't draft for need anyways, but let's be honest. A long-term need, whether they address it in free agency or not, is cornerback. And instead of going with the guys that a lot of you probably already know, like Ennis Rakestraw, who seems to be everyone's favorite mock to the Lions, or Quinion Mitchell, who's probably out of the Lions' reach at this point. Anyways, I'm going for a mid to potentially even late round prospect, because again, this is another polarizing guy. And that's Dwight McGothern, he was most recently out of Arkansas.
Do you say it with the L or not? Is it McGlothern or McGothern or?
Great question. Anyways,
okay, I just want to make sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, listen, it's early. He most recently played at Arkansas. Previous to that, he played at LSU. So you've got a guy who has played SEC ball right off the bat against some of the best receivers in the country. That to me takes notice. He also had the second best PFF coverage grade in last year, and that's with missing a couple games due to concussion. And interestingly enough, the Arkansas coaching staff made him re-earn his job back after the concussion. So he actually didn't become a starter right away after he's quote unquote fully healthy, but eventually he worked his way back into the starting lineup. The issue I have with him, and it again goes back to the kind of question of like, what does this defense want to be? We saw them pivot a little bit more towards zone coverage last year, then fall back towards man coverage. Which one are they going to be this next year? Or are they going to be fluid depending on who they get? McGlothern to me is very much more of a zone guy. He's got great instincts, great closing speed. But when it comes to man, I don't think he uses his size. He's a 6'2", 188 guy. Probably needs a little bit more meat on the bone, but I don't feel like he utilizes that size to his full advantage as he should sometimes. He's got good arm length. He can body people around. It's just the I don't know if it's the instincts, the aggressiveness. I don't know what it is, but the man coverage skills aren't quite what I think they should be. But like the most intriguing thing to me about him is like he's an absolute ball hawk. He's got a ton of production in college. He's a former wide receiver in high school, so like he has those receiving skills. He's basically like I'm trying to think like he don't worry about him being like an Amani Oruwariye. Like if the ball is in the neighborhood, he's going to make a play on it and more than likely come down with it. So to me, that's really his superpower, if you will. Like just has a knack to catch the ball. And in terms of what I'm looking for, it's that short area speed. It's so that he can not lose the route right away at the release, because that's where he fell into trouble at times. They had him play a little bit more off ball rather than press coverage, and we know the Lions like to do at least a little bit of press coverage. So I'd like to see him improve that, but because he has the physical skill set there, I think he's capable of doing it. So maybe I don't know who the Lions cornerbacks coach is going to be to help him fix that, but Maybe they eventually hire one. Maybe it's just going to be the defensive backs coach that they hired. But either way, I think in terms of like a developmental prospect who probably isn't going to start right away, but I think has the physical tool set to potentially be a full-time starter. I think he's an interesting option.
Anything else? Any other? So I was thinking about this. Just I don't know if he's on any other players you guys can think of like you just want to see there. Maybe not even in regards to the Lions.
Not really. Like I'm right there with Jeremy about Sweat though. Like just like
Sweat
doing
is
some more
very
Googling. Like you know what his nickname is?
I do.
Loaf.
What is?
Oh,
what is
short? And it's short for meatloaf. And he also scored a touchdown in the Big 12 championship game as a tight end.
Right.
So
I remember that.
I'm all about this guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Sweat's like one of the probably the biggest one I have.
If you're never going to run Aleem McNeil at running back like I've been begging you to for the past 3 years, do it with Devondre Sweat.
Put both of them. I formation. Goal line.
Just huge NASCAR packages. Oh. All right.
I mean, imagine they had done that on their penultimate drive against the 49ers on that run play that got stopped and forced them to use a timeout.
Why are you bringing this up?
Why
are you bringing this up?
I'm just saying, like that would have advanced them to a part where they may have won the NFC Championship game. He's the missing piece as a running back.
Running back Devondre Sweat, yeah, that's the missing piece.
That's right.
What
as I alluded to,
what stage of grief is Jeremy in, Chris?
I don't know. Like this is something new on the spectrum. This is like we've. It's not even madness. Like this isn't bargaining or even acceptance. This is just.
Thinking about Aleem McNeil at running back.
I think it is bargaining. I think it is bargaining.
Prove to me that I'm wrong.
I can't.
Exactly.
Well, as I alluded to, we will have First Bite this week. We'll be going a dive up north, getting if there's not at least one poutine reference in there, I will be very disappointed. Please play up all the stereotypes about the great CFL prospects that we have coming here.
I'm absolutely not going to say a boot to our Canadian reporter.
He might. How dare you?
I think anytime I say a word that has the British U in it, I think I'll make that clear. Like if I say the word color, I'll be like, but I said that with a U.
Yeah. Well, we have that. We have midweek mailbag.
That's right.
I apologize for the bit of delay getting up the podcast for the call-in show. It was a bit of a chonker this past week, and Twitter Spaces is continuing to degrade, so we are making some plans right now. But still, Twitter Spaces this week. We're still doing a lot of busy stuff. We got a lot coming down the pike here. Closer and closer we get to the draft. And free agency before that. It's coming real fast. It's already the end of February.
Free agency is 2 weeks away.
I know. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be so fun. Anyway, let's get out of here. I'm Chris Perfett. That's Jeremy Reeves-Maybin, Ryan Matthews. We'll see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Okay. I don't care what happens against the Michigan game. Like, I think we should stop doing this with college prospects where it's like, oh, here's the one game where they didn't show up. Cool. You can say that about everyone.
Who are you even talking about?
Chop Robinson.
Chop Robinson. There's two people in there pointing out that, like, oh, he wasn't good against Michigan.
Against the best offensive line in the country? Oh, boo.
Yes. Oh, no.
Yeah, hey, Penn State wasn't really good against Michigan. Surprise, surprise. Also, like, you can't do that game. Aiden Hutchinson, what did he do against Georgia? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought we had grown past doing this. What did they do against this one team in this one spot?
And I know that there were some people in chat too that were wondering why we weren't talking about players like JPJ from Oregon. Like I think like we were more so trying to just throw out names that maybe
we're trying to find
people,
risers.
Yeah, didn't have necessarily circled at 29 all the time.
Right.
Even though
which is why I went
a lot of my players were 29, but
yeah,
whatever.
Which is why I went like Cam Hart instead of Quinion Mitchell, who, as Jeremy pointed out at this point, I think Mitchell unfortunately is out of the reach of. Has Mitchell probably cemented himself as CB1 on the board, you think, Jeremy?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of varying opinions out there. It's certainly in the conversation.
Seems like he's in like the top tier with like 2 other guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I think we've talked about this before, but finding a dedicated like an actual quality CB1 has gotten harder and harder in the draft. Finding a guy who can play like a Darius Slay or a Richard Sherman, like those top guys in the game, Ryan, like those are commanding more and more premium prices, and there's fewer and fewer of them coming out. There's probably like one elite guy a year in the draft at this point. And even then, that's really variable.
And I mean, the conversation on drafting them early has completely shifted from when the Lions did it 4 years ago with Jeff Okudah, right? Like, at the time, it was like, oh, you're spending a top 5 pick on a corner? That's crazy. And now that...
Yeah, Sauce Gardner, Witherspoon, both went in the top 5.
Stingley.
Forgot about Stingley.
Yeah, like, it's possible, and... And remember, the other thing is like, oh, well, you're not going to see a cornerback make a big difference until year 3.
Sauce King.
That's gone too, like almost completely.
That rookie year for Sauce was something.
Yeah, there just seems to be exceptions like all across the board.
Yeah,
at like all these positions, but it like I don't know. I think it's with how the game has evolved too, though.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest one was always wide receiver. It's like, oh, you got to be patient with the wide receiver. Like nope. Put that guy on the field and let him run.
So yeah, to me that means like that top tier of corners. I'm not sure if anyone's going to make it that far down the first round.
Yeah, so, the value on them has just blown up.
I think like the other, I'm trying to think the other name, Arnold, right, from Alabama. He's in the conversation.
Yep. Let me get to some alerts since I feel like we're
I know I also need to pay off a Ruby cameo as well. I think I saw that.
Yep.
So.
Only a couple alerts here. Matt Sick, thank you for the 23 months. Salvador Covarrubias, thank you for the follow on Twitch. And MNUFC with the 34 months says, how happy was Jeremy when Brad Holmes basically confirmed that they have the same views on free agency in the draft? I do like feeling smart. And so when Brad Holmes goes out and says, yeah, I don't really view the draft as something that we do needs-based thing. Like, if there is a really, really talented player out there and we say, no, we don't need that, we need this more, and pass over him, that's how you lead to failure. And then when he says, but if you're talking about going needs-based approach, that's something that we more follow about in free agency, which is, yes, what I have been screaming from the top of the mountains for the past 3 to 4 years is that you need to fill your needs in free agency so you can go into the draft and just draft the best players. That is the best strategy. And now the Lions can take that to the absolute extreme because their needs list is guard, corner, defensive lineman.
Defensive lineman.
You can take care of that in one offseason, in one free agency period. And it doesn't have, and the great thing about it is it doesn't have to be like a long-term solution. You could sign a good veteran corner to a 1-year deal, and boom, you don't need to address it in the draft this year. You could, and you probably should.
Probably should. Yep.
If the opportunity is there, but
yeah,
you allow yourself to kick it down the road if the opportunity doesn't present itself, and that's the key.
Kick it down the board, so to speak, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did enjoy hearing that. It was actually a really good interview. I not that Brad Holmes says that much, but he says more than he used to. Didn't say anything regarding extensions other than, out of respect to the process, we're going to keep those things internal.
I love respect for the process, though.
He said that all the time.
I maintain I'm a big guy who respects processes.
All processes?
Trust the process.
Most of them.
Even the bad ones?
I guess.
Let me see if I can get the camera.
Speaking of processes though, like I need to go eat processed food because that's all that's available at 8-11 for me to get. So
what are you getting in your Taco Bell box?
I'm not getting Taco Bell. I think I'm actually probably just gonna go to Kroger and get some soup.
Okay.
What's 32?
Is it like out of their deli that you're gonna get it, or are you just getting like a Campbell's?
Yeah. No, like I'll probably get like something out of the fridge. Usually.
Ruby, a little more.
Do you respect the process of the catch? That's a good question.
Yeah, I respect all processes.
Okay. All right. I thought there might be an exception there.
There should be exceptions. You shouldn't say like you like all processes. Thai coconut curry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's from Home Chef, so I mean it is what it is, but it's still very tasty. So probably go that route. Or maybe if they have I don't know, maybe we'll do grilled cheese. Maybe we'll do tomato bisque.
Oh.
And grilled cheese.
All right,
it's
grab
always
one
like
for me.
Okay, got you. Yep.
You know the best soup out there? Do you know
what's that?
And I'm gonna go ahead and exclude ramen because that's in its own soup category. Do you know my answer to this? I'm sure I've talked about this soup before because it is.
I don't think so.
Lobster bisque.
Oh man, okay, yeah, we have had this conversation. I'm glad that you said that. I love lobster bisque.
Best soup.
Yeah,
it's in fact I think I've said this before on the podcast too. Top 5 food, all foods.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I love myself some lobster bisque, and I know that's super bougie of me, but
it's not like
it's not like I'm eating lobster bisque every night. It's just like if it's on a menu and I feel like it's a treating myself night, it's gonna be hard for me to pass up a lobster bisque.
What's the topic now?
Best soups.
Oh, I'm not big on soup. It's
because you live in LA. It's hot.
No, there should be a lot of soups around here. Like people still love pho. I guess the best still for me is ramen.
Yeah, I did say that. I prefaced my statement with ramen just deserves to be in its own category of soup.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid of soup and noodles almost.
Thoughts on New England clam chowder?
I am shockingly inexperienced in the clam chowder because I was scared of it as a kid. It was very intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would love it though.
I do enjoy New England clam chowder. I just ask, the problem is like it's not something I can buy in a can and have at home because usually the canned stuff has way too many potatoes and not enough clam.
Yeah. No, the canned stuff not any good. I could take you guys to like the best New England clam chowder you've had in Michigan though.
I do enjoy. I also agree with Dr. Gelf. I think it's better than Manhattan clam chowder too.
I can't say I've ever had Manhattan clam chowder, but I'm not interested in trying it.
I know my mom does not like new Italian wedding soup. I do enjoy that from time to time, but I'm just not a big soup guy at the end of the day.
Yeah. O'Malley's Galley. It's in Ortonville.
I like the name.
Oh yeah, no. I think it's great. Their fish and chips are awesome. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's like a 12-minute drive from my house, and it's like my favorite clam chowder I've ever had.
I think there was a pretty good bowl of since I talked Toledo a lot. Oh, actually, I've got another soup, but first off, the New England clam chowder at Real Seafood Company in Toledo is very good. But they have something on the menu right now that just kind of reminds me of another one that I actually really not lobster bisque, but have you guys ever had she crab soup?
As in He-Man, but she crab?
She crab soup. It's like it's basically the South's answer to lobster bisque.
Huh, no.
It's very good. I enjoy it.
I've never even heard of it. Why is it called she crabs? Is that a kind of crab? Or is this place misogynistic?
Let's see. It's because it has crab roe in it. That's why.
What does that mean?
Roe, as in like fish eggs.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's like crab meat and crab roe and a little bit of sherry, and it's a bisque, so it is a cream. It's basically a cream and stock soup.
broccoli cheddar's good. I'll give you broccoli cheddar Matty too, Addy. I don't think that makes you basic.
Just come on, Jeremy. Let's just travel Michigan and try soups.
Soup tour.
Just or all kinds of food, really. I just like to do a Michigan,
you know what? I think we just found out how we're gonna spice up the Pride of Detroit TikTok page. We're going on a soup tour. People make so much money just eating food in their cars.
I don't want to eat. That's something I am doing I've taken a very big stance on with the new car. I'm not eating in my car anymore.
That's the thing. Like, I understand recording in your car is a nice, like, sound controlled environment, but like, and you get like, you don't want the food to get cold and all that stuff, but like, just go in your house. I'm sorry. Like,
no, but not even that. Like, lav mics are so good now at cutting out some noise that, like, I'm just like, I get it if it's windy out, you don't want to do it, but like, just eat at a park bench or something. Like, I don't understand the problem with a lot of this. Like, I don't. Yeah. I don't understand eating in the car. I don't. And now that I've got a new car, it's like the last thing I want to do is start getting in that habit of eating in a car again.
So, like, obviously Keith Lee is the most famous of the people who do these reviews, and like, he's become crazy influential that like, it's crazy. Like, he's reached a celebrity status that is like dangerous, because when he leaves a negative review, suddenly this place is getting like death threats. When he leaves a positive review, it's lines outside the building for a month.
Yeah.
But
I mean, besides the death threats part, it's basically what we're doing again with the old newspaper food journalists. Like,
sure.
Jonathan Gold for the LA Times put restaurants on the map across across Southern California. Like, if Jonathan Gold wrote about you in the LA Times, you were blowing up.
But like, at least there's like a vetting process in the newspaper.
No, that's important. Yes.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's not Dave Portnoy showing up to take a bite of your pizza.
Right.
Yeah.
But I found that one of my favorite TikTok pages is someone who does just Keith Lee parodies, and he's gotten so good and funny at it that now he's just Keith Lee. Like, not that his parody is so good, it's just like, now he's just a food reviewer.
I don't know who Keith Lee is.
He's this, just like, I think he's a former UFC fighter, or at least mixed martial arts fighter, who's just like become one of the biggest TikTok influencers out there. And it's just doesn't want a different experience.
Doesn't want to be recognized. Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Send me one of your one of your reviews that you enjoy.
Well, you mean the guy who's impersonating him? Because I enjoy him.
Keith Lee.
I don't enjoy Keith Lee.
Okay, send both.
Okay.
I need a point of reference, otherwise I'm not going to get the. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Speaking of soups, the soup I probably order the most, and yet I cannot tell you a memorable thing about ever having a bowl of it, is miso soup.
Oh yeah.
But like, you have to, I almost feel like I have to order miso soup, and it's fine, but it's never like, wow, that was a really good bowl of miso soup.
No, dude, it's not supposed to be good. It's just supposed to be like, this is my yummy mushroom water.
Yeah, this is tofu water, but yeah, soybean water, yes, but
there's always just that one little sad piece of mushroom. That's like floating in everything of miso soup.
I can always tell how good a place I can tell how good a place is, though, is like how much like seaweed and green onions and tofu they put in their miso soup. If it's mostly just broth, I'm like, oh, okay, they're being stingy here.
I don't know.
Or they know that nobody gives a
about the miso
soup. All right, fellas, I'm gonna get out of here because I'm out of school and it's 8:30. So,
hell yeah!
All right,
stay frosty.
We should probably all get out of here.
Yeah, I want to eat something and then go play Helldivers with my friends.
I hate when he does a little pew pew thing. I don't like it. Make him stop, chat. Because he's doing the thing from Breaking Bad, and it reminds me of the Jesse Plemons character whose name I'm currently forgetting, and he was a neo-Nazi, and the character was not.
See, now you accuse me of going way too deep.
But it's Breaking Bad. That's not like cult classic.
speaking of which, I do need to. This is actually a very big content week for me because I do need to go watch Dune Part 2. And are you interested at all in the Shogun revival?
No.
On FX? No?
I don't. We talked about Shogun last week, and I thought it was an anime.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I just, I was talking with someone else at work, and he's an older gentleman, and he was just raving about, the old miniseries from, what was it, the 80s?
I clearly don't know.
1980. I was just making sure. So, no, Jeremy, that's Trigun.
See, I don't know what that is.
Trigun is an anime. Trigun is an
maybe
anime.
Maybe that's how my brain worked.
That's a very good, get yourself into anime. Anime is Trigun. Yeah, I always remember the miniseries Dark Elf because I think my grandmother had the James Clavell novel sitting in her house and was always up in a room where I would go stay when I was over there, and it had on the back pictures from the miniseries because it was published. It was a copy of the book printed after the miniseries had come out, and it had Richard Chamberlain as John Blackthorne, just very famously on the back, sitting there in the samurai garb and everything. So I don't know why that book just always seared itself into my brain as something I would never forget. And Trigun is so good. Make me want to go back to see Trigun again. I haven't seen that new one that they did with all the CGI, but Trigun is definitely Trigun and Cowboy Bebop are definitely two shows I saw very quickly in succession, and I'm sticking around with anime. Anyway, where are we going, Jeremy?
I think it's time to go. If you mean raid?
No, but I meant are you going to raid someone, or are we just going to
let's see
pop off?
I'm just going to see if my stream deck is going to work. Currently, it's not. Oh, there we go.
I have watched The Prisoner. I have watched the first 3 episodes of The Prisoner. I enjoy The Prisoner. The Prisoner is TV history. With oh God, what's his name? What's the Patrick McGowan? Yeah. Just very iconic, very bizarre show.
Okay, so Darius Slay is live. We could raid Slay. Interestingly enough, Fan Controlled Sports is live. I don't know what they're doing. I'm guessing it's not Fan Controlled Football, which would be funny since we just talked about it.
Yeah.
Let's raid. You guys want to hang out with Darius Slay? Why wouldn't you? He's great.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna send everyone here on Twitch to Darius Slay's live stream. If you're on YouTube, you can jump over to Twitch in the next 20 seconds and join it, or you can just close out the stream and go about your day, go about your evening. But
Prisoner is free on Roku channel. I'm gonna go watch this after this.
We'll be live next Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, most likely. I haven't confirmed a time yet with Eric for the midweek mailbag, and then Thursday night for the first bite on Matthew Betts. We're still working out whether we're going to do a call-in show this week because it's going to be in the middle of the combine and all that sort of stuff. And then next week, I'm hoping we can get Kentley Platty on to talk NFL Combine recap type of thing for another first bite. That's all I got. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Expect more guests throughout there. I'm working on a couple for my myself as well. Trying to get some more free time to myself because I want to. Again, I'm sorry I didn't have a pre-show stream here, but I'm going to try to come back next week and get some more stream stuff here. I'm kind of near the end line for all my extra work I've been picking up. So fingers crossed.
Twitch.tv/NoDecaf, NODEKAF for some additional fun streams.
Tell you what, if you stop by No Decaf next week, I'll do some anime list casting for you. How about that? Kid,
there,
8200.
There you go. But until next time, go enjoy Darius Slay. Give him some love from Detroit. what do you know? Maybe he'll end his career back here. We'll see. But anyways, we'll see you guys soon.
See you. All right.